There it goes. Okay. So, welcome to Turning Detours into Opportunities. We are working on the road ahead. Again, I want to remind everybody if my bandwidth is laggy or if I start cutting out, please let me know and we will try to troubleshoot from there. So, we are here today to discuss the difficulties of deferrals that are challenging for staff, donors, and volunteers alike. In this module, we will explore effective communication strategies and techniques to encourage donors to return for another life saving appointment, even when they encounter setbacks on their donation journey. This module is heavy on the donor ambassador role, so for those of you who are joining us from other lines of service, keep in mind that the skills and conversational pieces can be adapted to other situations that you deal with in your volunteer duties. So let's pave the road ahead for success. As always, we're going to go ahead and read through our visibility goals, making caring visible by incorporating skills, initiatives, and behaviors, serving internal and external customers at all levels and every interaction, creating a caring culture every day. So many donors begin preparing for donations days in advance. For a successful donation, donors must do things like eat a balanced diet, be rested, be knowledgeable about medications they have taken, both over the counter and prescription, know the dates and locations of travel, be about 17 years of age or even 16 with a parental consent form. They have to drink extra water to improve their hydration, and be knowledgeable about the required weight for their donations starting at 110 pounds. From registration to, or from rapid pass to registration, physical exams and phlebotomies, donors do arrive expecting to be successful and give that gift of life. Sometimes donors are thrown off course when they experience a deferral causing them to detour. Although there are many reasons for a deferral, we will focus on what you can do as a blood donor ambassador to help navigate things such as long wait times, vitals that may be high or low during a physical exam, and even some phlebotomy issues. It can be extremely disappointing to not be able to do something that you had your heart set on, that feeling that you have felt. It is very common that donors think and feel like something is wrong when they hear the word no. So I want to go ahead and ask anyone if you want to provide us with an example of how you've interacted with someone who is upset from things such as a deferral. And what are some things that you have done or said? Feel free to type it in the chat box. Go ahead. Oh, Barbara, did you want to come off mute or were we just practicing again?
No, I just if we have items to give out, I still give them the items because they've made the effort and make sure they take some of the uh treats and stuff and make some suggestions on if it's their iron, how to help them with that for the next time.
That's good. That's really good. And then we also have Eddie. And what are some things you have done, Eddie?
Yeah, so two things that I find are important when you're delivering bad news is one, have the reference material available to you, so it shows that what you're deferring for is a no kidding written policy. And the other part of it is just use the word we instead of I, so they understand that it's not necessarily you, the individual, who is turning them away.
I do like that. Thank you so much for sharing. We do have a couple things in the chat as well, and we'll go ahead and move on. Joyce had provided us with, depending on the reasoning why they had to defer, offer to schedule another appointment. And then, of course, Jan provided reassure donors that deferrals are common and they are not the only ones. So you guys did really good about the material we're about to jump into. So some key things that we want to keep in mind with deferrals is that we want to keep them private if a donor expresses that a deferral or even provides us with a reason. You want to be cautious not to blame the donor and choose your words very carefully. Try not to ask to avoid blaming and navigate these obstacles with statements. So, for instance, instead of asking questions like if they have drank enough water or state just kind of state it always helps when you have enough to eat or drink before coming. And even taking what Barbara had said, where she provides with some stuff that they can eat, maybe provide an example of things that you have done or other donors have done that can be beneficial, like maybe how much water you try to drink or what items you try to eat for your donations or that you have indicated to other donors for theirs. Deferrals are also not a stigma. Deferrals are very common and make sure that we understand or that they understand why they are being deferred and what they can do for next time. So encouragement and gratitude goes a long way. Empathy and compassion also go a long way. And of course, express appreciation for their effort. You showing up today is more than other people can do. You made a difference just by being here. That's a really impactful statement that I like to use with my donors. And then always ask if there's something more you can do, such as maybe putting a plan in place for the future. Maybe if you're trying to book them out for a future appointment, maybe just make sure it gives them enough time to do things like practice for their donations. We want to make sure we are incorporating our culture of caring communication skills when we are responding in a day-to-day discussion. We want to remember that when we are responding, we want to respond with a care-focused statement, a knowledge-focused statement, and then followed up with another care-focused statement. Think of this sandwich as more of a stoplight as we navigate through this module for how to deal with donors and that have detoured appropriately. So always keep in mind to use the first care statement more as like an opportunity to stop, listen to what they have to say before you respond with that care statement. Use our knowledge statement as a slow and cautious bridge to provide some facts. And then ending with a care statement to send them off with the best possible outcome as we could navigate that day. So some of the skills we also want to keep in mind when we are creating our statements consist of reflecting feelings. You're always saying something, communicating with a positive purpose, repeating that thank you, no thank you, and then responding with layers of caring communication. If you are interested in finding out more of any of those topics, we did review that in our Navigating Change module, and it is located on our YouTube channel. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Judith.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Long wait times can be one of the biggest challenges in providing a positive experience. While some delays are unavoidable, how we manage and communicate during these moments can make a lasting impact on donors. Oop, I think I went a little bit too far. There we go. So using the raise hand tool, please raise your hand if you have ever seen the donor wait time estimator chart that you see on your screen. Okay, cool. Look at all the hands. Love it. Great. So how do you use this chart? So looking across horizontally, you can see how many staff members are currently working. And looking vertically, you can see how many donors are waiting to complete their health history. An example would be 3 donors are waiting to be seen at the health history, and we have 4 staff members that are working at the blood drive. So that would mean that the approximate wait is about 22 minutes. This is an excellent tool for providing donors with an estimated time wait. What are some reasons that long wait times may have occurred at a blood drive? If you could please put your answers in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, and we'd love to hear your voice. Where do you get the chart? You would ask the charge nurse at the blood drive.
Yeah, so for the chart questions, it is located in the staff binder, and if you have a staff that doesn't know and the charge isn't aware either, feel free to reach out to your engagement rep and they can communicate that with the supervisor so we can make sure you have it next time. And then we have a few things in the chat as opposed to the scenario, Judith. We have
Yes.
walk-ins,
Yes.
some volunteers that failed to show, high
Right.
presentations of donors, lots of walk-ins, reactions happening at the drive, and then equipment being difficult. Wow, Jen, you must have experience.
Right.
Me?
Um,
Excellent.
Never.
We also have donors are running behind due to not completed rapid pass ahead of time, and there was an issue with
Right.
equipment, delayed start of drive, and then being short-staffed and more equipment problems.
That sums it up pretty much. So yes, excellent job, everyone. So yes, starting late.
Perfect. Jen has her hand up
Oh,
I
Jen.
and she's
do.
dancing.
I am. This one is very sort of prevalent right now because we're all very warm.
Oh,
A drive can be backed up because they cannot get the room cold enough.
that is true.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have a range. And then we also have rapid passes not being done and staff starting late. Yep.
These are all great. Yes, there's so many reasons for late start. So perfect. Let me move on. So acknowledging donors. Effectively using verbal and nonverbal communication skills helps support donors, especially during busy or challenging drives. Keeping donors informed and engaged can prevent frustration and make their experience more positive. Verbal acknowledgments is providing updates when there's a long wait and allows donors to make informed decisions about their time and prevents donors from getting upset from unexpected wait time. You'll see here, some examples of verbal cues could be, I see you've been here for a while. I'm so sorry for your wait. Or if you're helping a donor register and the donor comes in, you can say, hi, we'll be with you as soon as possible. And for those donors that have been waiting for a while, you can say, thanks for your patience. We'll be with you as soon as possible. Nonverbal cues also play a key role in showing attention and respect for our donors. You can turn your posture to face the donor, make eye contact, and of course, a smile goes a long way. Using both verbal and nonverbal skills ensures donors feel acknowledged, respected, and valued, even during delays. So how can we use verbal and nonverbal cues to help support our donors during these situations? When supporting donors with verbal and nonverbal cues, remember, communication is key. So in front of you, you see several scenarios. I'm going to go over a couple of them with you. So one scenario is a donor can say something like, no one said hello to me. So one verbal cue we can use to help them is greet each donor warmly with, hello, welcome, we'll be with you right away. And nonverbal cues include smile, make eye contact, acknowledge them if you are busy, even a nod or raising a hand showing they've been seen. Another scenario, a donor can say, it was like I was invisible. Some verbal cues you can use is, hi, we're glad you're here today. Thank you for coming to donate blood. Nonverbal cues is face the donor directly, smile, and use open body language. Acknowledging them as soon as they arrive reinforces their importance. Most of the time, donors just want to be appraised of what is happening. Update donors to ensure they have time to wait. Then if they don't, you can use tools such as Book Now to capture their donation at a later date. Remember, you have a large impact on donor satisfaction. Your presence is a present, and you are appreciated by all. Book Now. So again, using your raise hand tool, raise your hand if you have used Book Now at a blood drive. Awesome. Yay, love seeing all the hands. Beautiful. Look at all those hands. Love it. Beautiful, beautiful. Book Now is a powerful tool to help maximize donations. When a donor isn't able to wait, encourage them to use Book Now right away to quickly reschedule their appointment, whether it's later that day or within the week. This makes it easy for them to come back soon, and we ensure we don't miss the opportunity to collect their donation. I'm going to pass it over to Rebecca.
We did have someone in the chat that said they've never heard of Book Now. Arlen, if you wanted to connect with your engagement representative, they can definitely introduce that topic to you and maybe even set you up with some training. And it looks like before we move on, we have one more hand raised. Joyce, did you have any questions or were we just still raising our hands? I can put it down. Okay. And if you do have a question, feel free to raise it again. Oh, no, it's okay. And that goes for anyone. If anyone is interested in finding out more information on anything that's on these slides, feel free to reach out to your engagement reps. So we are going to move on to the consolidated physical findings and non-invasive hemoglobin. So consolidated physical findings and non-invasive hemoglobin refers to the technological updates during health history portion of the blood donation process. These machines, these include using one machine for that pulse and blood pressure, and then the new or sense machines to measure hemoglobin. So it is important to focus on positive facts and the reason for the change when navigating these conversations with donors. So some positive benefits of consolidated physical findings would be that we have an automated blood pressure and pulse rate. This makes it simpler and easier and quicker for training new employees. We also have infrared thermometers, which have quicker results without the risk of missing a probe cover. No finger sticks for most donors, so it's less painful, better experience, and even reduces that staph exposure. We also have a reduced need for supplies, so we have no need for lances, gauzes, bandages, micro cuvettes, alcohol preps, or even probe covers anymore in that health history booth. And then, of course, upgrades in technology always increase efficiency in processing donors. Interesting fact about this is that donor satisfaction with wait time has increased by 5.5% since this implementation. And by the time spent on physical exams has actually decreased by 1.45 minutes over the past 6 months compared to the previous years. So I did see a couple things pop in the chat, so let me go ahead. Less waste, landfills. Yay, go Jan. So we are going to move on. So raise your hand if you have navigated a disgruntled donor after the implementation of the consolidated physical findings and non-invasive hemoglobin. I saw one pop up, two pop up. Okay. So there are a couple of you. So as you can see, people are still sort of helping navigate these high donor emotions. And the following were concerns that were gathered from feedback from our donors after this implementation and the reason why we're talking about it today. So you may have heard things or may start to hear things such as, since Red Cross began using these devices to measure my vitals, my readings have been different. Maybe a comment like, I don't know why Red Cross has to change things. Maybe something around, I should be able to request that my vitals be taken using different using the previously used devices, and things like, I have been donating platelets for 30 years and 34 years, and I donate 24 times a year and have been deferred 3 times in the last 4 weeks. And then of course, adding something like something doesn't add up. The one important thing to note when speaking with donors that feel like the change is the reason for the deferral is keeping in mind that these experiences for these donors may be new or different, but we have always had high deferrals for things such as hemoglobin and blood pressure. These deferrals using these devices are actually being monitored very closely for any sort of staff errors, and we have done extensive testing in other regions during pilot programs before releasing them to others. And here I saw a couple things popping up in the chat. Jen said she just heard disgruntled donors and popped up her hand. Yep. Thanks, Jen. And one thing we want to keep in mind too is that these may not be scenarios that you have dealt with yet or that you may have to deal with, but we are going to develop some care knowledge care statements in the next couple of slides just as a general help support you in thinking of a response. So the first thing we want to talk about is that this is a pretty good response for those who may say things such as, I come all the time. I'm here all the time, and this is brand new to me. I've never, had to experience this before. Or maybe they're blaming the change itself. It has to be the change. You want to make sure that you are starting with a very strong care statement after hearing them. So I'm sorry to hear that things are different since we upgraded that new technology. Have you asked maybe the staff for additional information on how to prepare for success using the new equipment? The way the hemoglobin is measured is different, as well as all the other vitals, right? And then ending with, I would be happy to grab someone, like an experienced staff member, because us as donor ambassadors, we're not able to provide too much of that medical information. So let me grab a staff member, an experienced staff member, to talk with you about what can be done for better success for your next donation appointment, right? So they can give them some tips and tricks as we navigate that this is new to us as well. And from a medical standpoint, let the staff explain those things, right? So they can be more prepared. And then maintaining trust through that deferral. So, maintaining trust in us as an organization and as the staff, keeping in mind that Red Cross would not make an implementation to collect less blood. That is not why we implement advances. And a lot of these advances are from, that donor feedback. There is a learning curve, so keep that in mind. So maybe starting off with something such as, I know you are incredibly committed, and we appreciate you being persistent. We appreciate you coming. Deferrals are actually being monitored. You are able to provide that to the donor. So deferrals are being monitored closely, and you can always request for a different device to be used or request for for the charge to perform that second check. And just to minimize any errors. So that way we can say it's not a device thing. It's not the person that's doing your history thing. It could just be that today is not your day, and then sending them off for thank you for your support and understanding through this process, meaning through this new change. So does anyone have any questions about this segment before we move on? We do have a couple things in the chat. Jan said, if a donor has been deferred to low iron, I suggest that they ask for a hand warmer next time they come in. And yes, that is a good key tip, Jan. And we do have a future, like in the future, look forward to section. Yeah. Exactly how are they getting the blood? Kathleen, are you talking about how is the ore sense reading the hemoglobin, or how are they taking the blood? Usually we take the blood in the phlebotomy area.
No, how are they? They're not finger sticking for a drop of blood. How are they for their um, blood? But how are they, if they're not sticking them for the blood test, how are they doing it?
Yeah, so the way that I understand it is that it's an aura sense reader. So it goes on the tip of their finger and it uses light to measure their hemoglobin level. So, such as Jan explained, using those hand warmers will help that circulation. That's
Yeah,
why
for
we offer
sure.
them
Yeah,
now
yeah.
in the registration and things. But don't quote me on that. That's just my understanding of it. So don't go back and say Rebecca said.
No, 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 no,
Um,
no.
I'm not in collections, so I also wasn't trained on it, but from what I've read, it has a lot to do with the light rays. And that's, what it's doing. It's measuring the hemoglobin in that particular finger.
Yeah, I've heard him ask the client, the donor, if they want to just sit for 15 minutes or so and recheck their blood pressure. And from what I've seen, most of them will wait, and probably 80% of the time it's better, so they can give the blood.
Yeah, I always say
But they're
that
sitting
when,
there waiting and getting nervous and stuff, and your blood pressure is going to go up. So it works. Yeah.
uh, yeah. Well, thank you, Kathleen, for asking. It looks like we have a couple things in here.
Thank you.
And then it smells like using the pulse ox. Yep, almost like using the pulse ox. Okay, so moving on to phlebotomy deferrals. So, phlebotomy complications are not something that us as donor ambassadors deal with frequently, but it is things that we do receive people from the phlebotomy area into the canteen. So, phlebotomy complications are one of the hardest deferrals for donors. So keep in mind that when facing this type of detour for these donors, try to be extra mindful of the facts. These donors have already completed their rapid pass. They arrived for donation. They possibly waited to be seen. They took all that time and effort and passed all physical exams and questions. And then they were well on their way to crossing that finish line before they couldn't quite make it across. So it is hard to help donors navigate deferrals from the phlebotomy area as these donors have typically already experienced a venipuncture and possibly even a nearly completed unit. So when you receive a donor in the canteen area, make sure to be ready to listen before you proceed with anything. Gather all information before forming your statements when encouraging the donor to communicate their emotions. So, things you want to ask yourself when you're listening to these donors is why was the donor deferred, right? What is the underlying cause for their deferral? And what do they think happened? So, from their understanding, what do they think is the reason why they were deferred and what you can do to diffuse the situation. Don't be afraid to ask any sort of follow up questions to show the donor that we are supportive. So, again, before giving your care, knowledge, care statements, make sure that you are asking them, like, how are you feeling now? So that brings them back to the present. You can't fix anything for them in the past, especially because we're not on the collection team, but for the future now, for their care right now, how are you feeling now? Is there any pain? And is there anything that I can do to help? So, for instance, maybe in the donor room, if you are at a fixed site, they might have an infiltration. Maybe they denied taking the ice pack the staff offered them. Maybe now it hurts. Maybe now that they have vented a little bit and their anxiety is a little down, maybe now they are in pain and they would actually like that ice pack. We can't administer that, but we can ask the staff to. And that's one example of the reasons why these questions are very important. So, one thing that you also want to be mindful of when developing your responses is try not to put blame onto the collection staff, even if you think they are at fault. So, even if you notice a pattern in deferrals from a particular staff member, do not address that situation with the donor. not currently, not ever. Do not talk about it with other volunteers. If you really suspect that there is an issue with this particular staff, bring that information maybe to a supervisor of some sort. So whether it be the charge or the engagement representative or a team supervisor, so that they can investigate and bring that information to light to the appropriate people, so that the staff can be monitored and ensure that appropriate actions can be taken for a better success rate and future donor comfortability, right? Okay, so I did see a couple things pop up in the chat here. Thank you so much for joining, Eddie. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Judith to wrap us up with planning to avoid detours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rebecca. So planning to avoid detours. In this section, we will review some tips for volunteers to help donors avoid these detours in the future. So for donors that need a little extra care and effort, maybe try to offer to take their phone number so you can call them back. You can check with staff about slower times later in the day to accommodate them for walk-ins. You can also encourage them to look for open appointments using the Blood Donor app or Book Now. Supporting donation success. I know we've talked about this or it's been brought up before, but don't forget we have hand warmers in the registration. Using hand warmers help with better accuracy. Cold fingers can restrict blood flow, which may lead to inaccurate hemoglobin reading. Having warm hands equals better circulation. This ensures the ORSense device gets more reliable measurements. Less retesting. Warm fingers reduce the chance of repeat checks, helping with donation. So there is an activation time. Hand warmers need 15 to 30 minutes to heat up. When arriving at the blood drive, check in with staff and make sure that they have started the activation. Open the hand warmers during the drive to set up so they're ready to go for the first donors. How to use the hand warmers. So you place the hand warmers inside a baggie or hand grip. They are found in the tote, or you can also ask the staff member. Keep the baggie slightly open so air can circulate. This keeps the warmer active. After testing, once the hemoglobin test is done, remove the hand warmer from the baggie so it stays warm. Return it back to the registration table for the next donor. If other areas, such as the health history, needs one, it can be picked up from the registration. So how can volunteers help? Offer hand warmers to donors before testing and explain that they help improve accuracy. Prep them in baggies before handing them out. And finally, answer any questions donors may have about the hand warmers. And just be there to support our donors. I'm going to pause here just to see if there's anyone that has any questions about the hand warmers.
No, but we do have one about we do, Patty. Patrice? Do you want to come off mute?
I think,
You're
yeah.
going to want to click the microphone.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've never seen the hand warmers available in our area, or I've never seen anyone using them. Are they available everywhere?
They might not be in circulation at some locations, especially if it's been warm where you are. But if you've noticed the center is cool, or if you are in a colder climate, then maybe ask the staff, hey, I've noticed it's a little cold. Can you guys get that hand warmer ready for me? And just double check with them that they can get you the baggies for them. And you can use them if you've noticed, that they're waiting a long time, maybe offer them a hand warmer to keep that circulation increased and things like that. So if you're not noticing something at your drives that's missing, again, follow up with the charge. And if the charges or the staff say, oh, we don't have those, follow up with your engagement rep and they'll get that fixed for you. Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much.
I
Um,
first saw them at the donor center because donor centers are usually pretty cold. So I think that's when I first saw the hand warmers, and I've seen a few out in the field as well.
And Kathleen, same goes for you. If you're notice that when you get there that it's a little chilly and the donors are waiting for a long time, or if for some reason you need them because you're in a colder climate, check with your charges. They may be forgetting to, this is a newer implementation to keep them at registration. So definitely check with your charges if they are reluctant to give them to you or say you can't have them for whatever reason, follow up with your engagement rep. And again, this is a process change. So new to some people, especially now that we're in the summer months, most places, and we're pretty warm, they may not be used as frequently or may not be set up for us as frequently, but you're able to
Thank you.
ask for them. Yeah. And then I always wear gloves prior to donating. Lynn, that's a good tip. That's a great
Yeah,
tip to share with
that
our
is.
donors.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Okay, so let me move on to the next slide. All right, so establishing trust in the staff. So let's say a donor expresses the need to use a specific arm. Sorry. We can help avoid phlebotomy issues by using care, knowledge, care. So something that you would say to the donor is, I appreciate you sharing your arm preference with me. The staff will evaluate both arms to be sure they select the best arm for the donation today. I appreciate your understanding and know we will explain why they will be using the selected arm so you both feel confident in your donation today. All right, so I'm going to hand it back over to Rebecca.
Oh, sorry, that switched really quickly. So first, I wanted to thank everybody for coming today. I am going to stop the recording at this point, so bear with me again. I am going to talk about the next caring communication dates, but not too much about that module.